Hi, and welcome to Something New is Possible. This is my first solo episode of 2026, and it's a perfect timing to talk about New Year's resolutions, goals, intentions, and all that jazz, and talking about how we can be more intentional about, creating the things that we want to have in 2026. So, usually I talk a little bit about the process and how I recommend that you go about it. And I want to do some of that today, but I also want to add some things where I talk about, closure and what we need in order to really set ourselves up to create what we want. As the year closed out, what I highly recommend is that, and I do this with my executive coaching clients, that you take out a piece of paper and a pen and write down all the accomplishments that you had. What did you do well? And oftentimes you will see that you don't even remember all the things that you did well because it's so long ago. So write down as many things that you can think about. What went well? And perhaps also write down what did you do in order to make that happen. Maybe you found the love of your life, or maybe you were able to change something internally. Maybe you were able to let go. Maybe you manifested something that you've been dreaming about for a long time. Maybe you lost weight. Maybe you started a regular meditation practice. Maybe I wrote about it in my newsletter. I think I successfully, dealt with the loss of my mother. So whatever it is, it doesn't matter whether it's very intangible, whether it's tangible, and it's maybe even so intangible that it's difficult for you to put into words. Just write it down, and then really create a space, or maybe even a ritual, because human beings, we love rituals, where you can celebrate those accomplishments and acknowledge yourself for whatever it took for you to make that happen. So in my case, I was determined, I was courageous. I really allowed myself to go into places that were very painful. And I was sort of determined, and I just really held on to that belief that something good would come out of it. And so as I was, dealing maybe again or a new way with chapters from my childhood, I wanted for there to be a positive resolution. I wanted to walk away, and I wanted to feel, foremost, I think I wanted to feel differently inside of myself. And that you can do with all the things that you put on your list. And as you're dealing with it, and maybe, it sounds a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of things, just take time. You don't have to figure this all out or, do this process all at once. But what's important is that you do look at your accomplishments that you had in 2025. And once you're done with that, and in a separate session or a separate process, look at the things that didn't go so well. What didn't I accomplish? Where am I still, same old, same old? For me, one of the things on that list is like my sleep. I just can't commit to going to bed at a regular time, or I go off and on with my exercise schedule. There's like periods where I'm really good, or with my diet. So like that whole, taking care of myself, I'm just not very consistent. As I'm getting older, I pay the price. So, my body is harder to recover. I have more back aches, and my muscles are, they get stiffer. So it's like, as I'm coming to the new year, I'm looking at what this is, one of the things I want to be different. And I look at the last year, and I can see that, it's not where I want it to be. And so then I look with the eyes of love to that part of me that has not been able to be that disciplined, or to the part of me that has not been willing to commit to what it would actually take for me to make a difference. Because I don't want to beat myself up even more, because I'm already doing that, whether that's unconsciously or subconsciously, or maybe even consciously. So I want to be compassionate to all the places inside of me, outside of me, where I'm like, I haven't been able to, make that difference. I have not been able to move the needle, or maybe the way I move the needles has not been the way I wanted to. So two separate processes before you actually start to look at what is it that I want for 2026. I look at what did I accomplish? What did it take for me to make that happen? What inequalities, what commitments, what tools, how did I get there? And then I look at what didn't go so well. Where have I not been able to move the needle? And that could, and in both areas, you want to really look at the very intangible, because oftentimes when we deal with that intangible, with that emotional thing, then the outward manifestation of that can be really great. Once I've completed that, then I look towards 26. And one of the wonderful exercises there is the Wheel of Life, where you actually look at your goals, your intentions in terms of categories of your life, and where do you want to have things differently. And if you're interested in the Wheel of Life, just write to me. I can send it to you. But you can also just identify some areas in your life where you want to experience something different. And before you come up with the goals and the methods and how you make it all happen, think about how you want to feel. How do I want to feel? How do I want to feel when I get up in the morning? Why do I want to have a different sleep routine? Because I know that I will feel differently. I don't want to be tired in the middle of the day. I want to be full of energy. I want to be excited. I want to be happy. And I know that sleep impacts all of those different areas. So, then I want to ask myself, well, why don't I want that? And it's always the $1 million question, because we usually know what to do. And then the question is well, why don't I want that? Or why am I not willing to commit to that? And the easy answer is it's hard and it's difficult, but that's not usually the real answer. So it's as you're diving deeper, you might get some other answers. So first, always look at what do you want to experience in your life? How is that impacting you? And I call that intention. It's sort of like the qualitative part of the goal. And then I look at, what's that actually going to look like in terms of things that I can measure. Maybe it has something to do with a number on the scale, or maybe it has to do something with measuring certain quality of my sleep in an app. I don't know. Or maybe it has to do with, playing and practicing the piano in so many hours in a week. One of the things I really want this is an outward goal. It would be, I want to play the piano better so I can sing and, accompany people and sort of have groups of people around and do music. But really why I want that, because it's great fun for me and it brings me so much fun and enjoyment. So I would want to have that goal first. And then I want to look at, is the piano really the way that I could have that? So always look at the emotional experiences that you want to have, and then look at the outward goals, and then you can look at the methods. So not usually the way that we think about goals, because we think about it the other way around. So I encourage you to take on this process, and maybe don't do it all at once, right? And so it's allow yourself to have a day or 2 days or a week or 2 weeks. And, it doesn't really matter whether you get it done, in the first week of January, or whether it takes you the whole month of January. What's important is that you allow yourself to be present to this process of, hey, I want something and I want to see how I can create that for myself in 2026. That is basically the process of how I approach, closing out the year and then starting a new year and looking at what is it that I want. And sometimes when we start to, formulate the goals, actually today I was with a bunch of friends and they were asking me, what do I want for 2026? I can sometimes understand that there may be an intellectual goal that I have, but emotionally I'm not quite there. One of the things that is important as you embark on this process of identifying the the goals and what you want to experience in 2026 is that you start to pay attention to the gaps that you're experiencing. So I can have an intellectual goal of where I say, hey, I want to weigh a certain amount. Let's say I want to, weigh 51 kilos. And emotionally, I'm realizing that, there's no way that I emotionally think that I can that I can do that. And that as a matter of fact, as I'm thinking about that it brings up some, some negative emotions. And so you want to pay attention to that. And you want to then take a look and see, what does that actually mean? And so maybe the goal that I've set for myself is not realistic. So, and I should say that the goals that we have, as well as the sort of emotional things that we want to experience, there has to be 50% realistic. So if I'm a negative person or I've been very depressed, for me then to go out and say in 2026, I'm going to be calm, namaste, I'm going to have a relaxed time, I'm going to have an easy time, and I'm going to be always happy and content, 50% of the time or 100% of the time, may be completely unrealistic. So I need to kind of see where I am and make sure that whatever I have for myself, what I'm aspiring to experience or to create for myself, that it's 50% realistic. And it has to sort of match. There can't be this huge gap between, oh my God, I want this intellectually, but I can't see myself there emotionally. It has to sort of be together. And then you want to enter into a dialogue and you want to see what the gap is all about. And in that dialogue, in that moment, and you giving yourself into that process of inquiring with yourself, you actually get a lot of information. So what I'm encouraging you to do is just sit down and say, hey, I am going to start this process of where I'm looking at 25 and I'm looking at what did go well? Where am I proud of myself? How can I celebrate that? What did it take? And then also what didn't go so well with 25 and what happened there and how can I complete that? Then I move myself to what do I want? What do I want to experience? What do I want to have emotionally? And what are my goals? What are the methods in order for me to go there? And more important than you actually achieving that goal is the process of you getting yourself from A to B, because in that process, you will get so much information. It will be so rich for you. And that awareness alone will be actually what you're looking for, because it will move you forward in a very profound way. So that's a short version of me talking about how to start 2026. There's lots of tools available on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. Please share this information with others. And if you're interested in getting the Wheel of Life worksheet, let me know. I'm happy to send it. Happy New Year. Take care. See you soon.